So Sucker Punch broke away from the infamous franchise to try something new with Ghost of Tsushima. Was it worth it? Let's jump into it and find out. So the way I'm doing reviews now is using my friend Scott's 7Ps method, which he's actually going to be doing his first written review for Ghost of Tsushima, I believe. You can follow him on Twitter. I think his name is now 7P Gaming on Twitter. But the 7Ps are the playing, the plot, the people, the places, the phone, aka the sounds, and the picture, and also the pop, which is the wow factor. That's the final one we'll go through. So what we're going to start with is the playing. Let's jump in to the Ghost of Tsushima review. So the gameplay of Ghost of Tsushima brings me back to the good old days of the Assassin's Creed franchise. That's kind of what resonated with me, with the parry system. And then you get a few extra things added in as you progress to make it a little bit more complex than Assassin's Creed 2 or Brotherhood's combat ever was. So you have 4 different stances for each different type of enemy. There's swordsmen, there's shieldmen, there's the spear guys, and then there's the brutes. So in terms of enemy variety, it's really not a lot. There's just 4 different types of enemies, and some of them are more annoying than satisfying to fight, to be quite perfectly honest. But once you level up and get things like the throwing daggers and the smoke bombs, it makes a huge difference to the fun factor of the game. It makes things a lot more interesting and definitely a lot more fun. So I still think the best way to play the game personally is to start off stealthy, try to pick off a few in each camp, and then once there's maybe like 4 to 5 guys left, take them all on at once and test yourself and just see if you can survive. The game itself isn't too difficult. I played on the normal difficulty. I didn't really struggle too much in terms of normal fights, but then the boss fights are where the real challenge is, and that's the way it should be, of course. But there's quite a big difficulty spike in certain areas. There was one particular one that the difficulty spike was incredible. I couldn't believe how difficult this boss fight was. I won't mention it for spoiler reasons, but I literally had to do it like 30 times. I'm not even exaggerating. It was like it was a Dark Souls boss fight all of a sudden. But in the end, of course, it was really satisfying to finally beat that motherfucker. One thing I do wish with these boss fights is that you kind of knew when you were gonna have one, because sometimes you can go into a boss fight, you'll have half health, and you'll have no resolve at all. And resolve is so important to the core gameplay of this game. Like, if you go into a boss fight with 0 resolve, you have to spend the first 2 minutes of the boss fight just trying to avoid his attacks and get your resolve back up so you can actually make a move on him. And then even when you die and they respawn you, they still respawn you with no resolve, the same resolve you had before the boss fight started, which was really, really annoying in certain situations. But I got through all of them without having to reload, and I eventually did it, and was satisfying to beat the bosses in the end, as I said. But overall, the gameplay is fun and satisfying. Sometimes it's frustrating when there's different types of enemies, like the swordsman. Say there's a swordsman, a shieldman, and a spearman, and then a brute around you in the same area. It's kind of hard to fight all of them at once. Just because you have to be switching stances, and there's certain different attacks that work on the swordsman that don't really work on the spear guy, and the parry, then you can parry some of the brute's attacks until you get certain paths in your unlock system, your upgrade system unlocked rather. So yeah, there can be definitely frustrating moments in the combat, but I really did like it overall. And as I said, it brought me back to the good old days of Assassin's Creed, because I miss a lot the olden days of Assassin's Creed, like Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood. Those are my favorite Assassin's Creed games by quite some margin. So just to have kind of a semblance of that combat back in action was really nice as well. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the gameplay. If you have any specific questions, you can ask me in the comments down below. I'd be happy to answer anything you guys have to ask. So moving on, we're gonna go to the plot. So the story in Ghost of Tsushima is one that definitely grows on you throughout its 20-hour campaign. That's without any side quests, because there is a lot to do in this world. I mean, there's a lot of side quests, there's a lot of mythic tales, duels in random locations that can just turn into something epic. Like, exploration, it's definitely a game that rewards exploration, right? Like, you can upgrade your max health and resolve by finding certain locations. these hot springs or bamboo sticks. The bamboo sticks, by the way, holy fuck, that shit is hard. I literally struggle so bad with doing, because it's like you have to start off hitting 3 buttons in a row, then you hit 5 buttons in a row, then you hit 7 buttons in a row, and you have to do it in this really quick, you have to do it in this really short amount of time as well. So it's incredibly difficult. I had to end up writing down the buttons and then looking at it while I was pressing them. But anyway, back to the actual plot of the game. That's what we're supposed to be talking about here. At the start, I thought it was just going to be a basic revenge story and trying to stick to your morals and code while ultimately having to break it to save your people. That's what it kind of seemed like it was going to be. And while it still has those elements for sure, it definitely grows into something more and does get you attached to the characters in a way that I didn't expect it to. And then it gets you attached to this quest for justice as well. I obviously won't get too into the story for spoiler reasons, but basically you'll end up like seeing both sides of the coin between being a samurai and being the ghost. They've shown that in trailers and stuff like that. You can see the struggle turn into something deeper as you go. And to be honest, I sympathize with both sides of the argument and who it affected. I won't go in too deep to that because it will be spoilery. So I'll just leave it at that for now. I don't want to spoil the game for anyone. I'll leave you guys to discover it for yourself. But the story definitely grows. There's a couple of what the fuck moments, like holy shit, I didn't expect that to happen like it did. And yeah, but overall an enjoyable story, if nothing magnificent, and solid stuff, I would say. So now it's time to move on to the characters. So we'll still be kind of talking about the plot with the characters as well. So you play as Jin Sakai, the last of his clan and one of the remaining samurais under the tutelage of his uncle Lord Shimura. The dynamic these two characters have throughout the game is great. You see Jin as a young man who wants to do right by his uncle after being raised the samurai way, but as I mentioned earlier, he has to deviate from the conventional way to get results, and this obviously causes friction with his uncle. I find it strange because with Shimura, it felt like at times we weren't meant to like him, but I always understood where he was coming from in a way, and I thought he was a great character. I did think that he was one of the better characters in the game. So Yuna is your sidekick in the game. Now, she probably is the most likable character in the game and the most relatable. She's just trying to find her brother Taka and flee the country with him. She doesn't want anything to do with the war between the samurai and the Mongols. She doesn't, the Mongols. She just wants to be with her family and get the hell away from it all. But obviously she is dragged into it as you go, and she ends up becoming a huge part of Jin's story. She's a really cool character that I ended up vibing with a lot, and I liked her. So they are the 3 main characters: Jin Sakai, Uncle Shimura, and Yuna. They would be what I would class as the main characters. You then have the main villain, who is the Khan, who ends up being pretty intimidating. Overall, a decent villain, I would say, if nothing amazing. Other side characters include Ryuzu, who has quite a considerable role to play in the story due to his history with the main character Jin Sakai. Ishikawa and Adachi also. Lady Adachi and Sensei Ishikawa, they play a role in the main story, but more of the quests focused on them are side quests. They actually have like a chain of side quests where like the first one you do is 1 of 9, and then you can kind of see that it's going to be 9 quests in total. There's different ones as well, like there's a certain one with Kenji that's only 3 quests in the quest line. So yeah, it's cool that they have that. I like the way they tell you how long it's going to be, pretty much. Like it's 9 separate side quests. I thought that was like a cool way to get to know the side characters if you wanted to, without just putting them as main story to pad the game length. So Adachi was very likable as well, I feel like. Ishikawa, I didn't really get too much into his side quests, but I did do a lot of it. Adachi's one, and her quest for revenge was quite intense, I must say, and I really wanted to help her. I really wanted to help her out, and kind of I understood exactly where she's coming from, so you wanted to help her out while also you had to calm her down in situations like that. But that's enough on the characters. Let's move on to the places. So, Ghost of Tsushima the entire story takes place on Tsushima Island, which is an island situated in between the Tsushima Strait and Korea Strait. In the game, it's split into 3 regions. You go further north as you progress through the story and unlock the 2 new regions. Tsushima overall is a stunning island with incredible looking forests and vegetation all over. There's an incredible amount of locations to discover on the map too. Like, I felt like overwhelmed at times with the amount of stuff on the map. There's just a crazy amount. It's the same way I kind of feel with Assassin's Creed, the new versions of the Assassin's Creed games. There's just like almost too much to do. Whether it be a Mongol camp or a hot springs to get your health up, there's new stuff to find from top to bottom of the map, really. A lot of it, does just feel like filler content. But there's also some really cool stuff that you can randomly discover while you're roaming the world, such as the random duels I mentioned earlier. Some of them can like take place in a beautiful ring of flowers or a ring of fire or something like that. And that's why we're going to move on to the next P, which is the picture. So I had a little bit of a confusing one with the picture here, to be honest, because it goes hand in hand with the places. It's a funny one because I played what is probably the best graphical game on consoles in The Last of Us Part 2 shortly before I played Ghost of Tsushima. Like, it was only a week in between. So I feel like it was always going to be a little bit disappointing as I was coming back to reality pretty much, right? So not every game's going to look like The Last of Us Part 2. But Ghost of Tsushima does look incredible in certain areas and pretty ordinary in others. As I mentioned before, I don't want to just harp on this, but the vegetation and the grasses and everything like that, they actually look really, really good visually. It makes for some stunning areas that can keep up with any game. But then again, I was discussing with my friend Robin actually that like the rock surfaces and houses and everything like that, they kind of look very ordinary. Like, it looks like something you'd see at the start of the PS4 life cycle, I mean to say. I was trying not to compare it to The Last of Us 2, obviously, but it really was a big step down the week after. And I'm not saying it's a bad-looking game by any stretch, because I do think it's a good-looking game. It just has some weird inconsistencies that I noticed. Overall, it does look good. The characters look good. Some of the animations are a little off with the voice acting, but the characters themselves do look great in the cutscenes. So now let's move on to the penultimate P, and we're going into the sounds here. So I don't have too much to say on the sounds. I think the soundtrack for the game is good. It's solid Japanese style music that fits the theme of the game. I wouldn't say any like particular songs stuck out immensely to me, but as I say, all solid stuff that fits the game. So I think they've done a great job with that. The flute especially was just beautiful in certain scenarios, and I enjoyed it overall, and I definitely like listen to that to be at peace in certain scenarios, like get my zen on, you know. And the last P is the pop / the wow factor. So I definitely think the biggest wow moments in this game are just when you're riding across certain locations that look incredible with your horse, or in certain mythic tales having a duel on the side of a cliff with lightning and rain coming down upon you. There's some epic stuff in there for sure. There's also one wow moment in the story that I saw coming, honestly, but it still was brutal, and the way it happened just shocked me. I won't go over that obviously for spoiler reasons, but yeah, definitely just kind of discovering new locations as you go is probably the biggest pop or wow factor I would have in this game. And all in all, I feel like Ghost of Tsushima is a solid game that I feel like it does everything well, but it doesn't do anything absolutely amazing. Nothing is absolutely amazing, and then nothing is bad either. So I feel like it's just a solid game that works. It works as a first attempt for a game like this from Sucker Punch. I think it's a great effort, honestly, because they obviously... I keep saying obviously. I say obviously a lot, huh? Obviously. And same way with Days Gone, that I thought that they done a good job for their first kind of game like that. I guess they've made open world games before, like Infamous. Second Son was slightly open world, but it was nothing like this game, really. So I feel like they definitely have the base for something good here. There's some things that could be improved in a future title, and I hope we get to see it. For me, Ghost is a solid 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. Make sure to share this if you enjoyed the review. Let me know what you think of the game. Obviously, this is just my personal opinion. If you have different opinions, I'd love to hear them when you play the game for yourself. There's a lot of content in there. The game took me about 20 hours just to complete the main story, but I have gone back and done side quests, and I've been doing some hot springs and stuff like that just to get my health up and do some battles, etc. But there's a lot more content than the 20-hour main story in there. There's probably like 50 hours worth of content, I would imagine, just based on the amount of stuff you can see on the map. But I appreciate all of you watching. Make sure to drop a like on this video if you did enjoy it. It's the best way to let me know that you do enjoy the content. You can buy one of these shirts if you want to. I'll have my Ghost of Tsushima playthrough starting on Thursday if you want to watch it. Feel free to come along on the journey. It's 10 parts in total, I think. So they're long videos, though, by the way. They're all like pretty much 2-hour videos. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Really do appreciate it. We'll be back with more Ghost of Tsushima for the playthrough, and I'll be back with more reviews like this in the future because I do enjoy reviewing games, I have to say. So I want to do it more. I did it with The Last of Us, and that was pretty well received, even though it was a really controversial game, so there's just dislikes on the video anyway. But the actual content of the review seemed to be well received, and I appreciate that. We'll be back, and I'll see you guys next time. It's been my pleasure to serve you.